Welcome back to Connect. I am your host, Andy Hale. Today, I am excited to talk to my friend, Magen Baker. Magen, welcome to Connect.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy. I have to say uh, I'm excited to have this conversation, but nervous. This is my first podcast, but I'm on.
Just introduce yourself. Like we met through your work at Bell and Ivy. Tell everybody kind of like what you do there, and kind of who you are.
Yeah, so I I Andy is a very dear client of ours. We absolutely love him. My role specifically here at Bell and Ivy is I'm the vice president of brand strategy. So we do everything pertaining to anything under the sun under PR and brand and kind of marketing. And so my role is really overseeing that, looking at it from a different creative standpoint and developing a strategy for the client and or product, what have you, to be successful.
Yeah. So my work with Bell and Ivy, obviously, everybody there, you included, has been part of my spiritual journey. When I first met Jessica Rachel, when she told me that I really, I was a star seed, and I've got this purpose in life to kind of, talk about, motivate people, talk about kind of life lessons, all these things, which led me to start Connect, which we're here doing, which is unbelievable now to think I've been doing this for a while. So we've had a lot of discussions about Connect, about Jessica, and we've talked a little bit on the
Mhm.
side. Do you consider yourself, before you and I had talked about this? Do you consider yourself a spiritual person?
Oh, absolutely. So background, like personal background on me, I am of Cuban descent. So my heritage and my grandfather and grandmother and father were all born in Cuba. They were very, very spiritual. I don't know if the audience or if you are familiar in terms of just kind of Cuban heritage, right? In terms of their following. It's I've always from a very young age been introduced to spirits and purpose and signs. So um as a kid, I had people coming through our homes, like coming to get blessed and prayed for. And those
Really?
aren't things you talk about on the playground. Yeah, those aren't things you talk about on the playground. So for my entire life, it's been something that was almost like talking about, is the sky blue? So it's refreshing that now as a society, people are kind of woken, if you will, and are more comfortable talking about it. But yeah, I've star seeds and that I'm just now being introduced to, but from a spiritual realm, it's been from as long as I can remember.
Now, had you, um, recently had your colleague Don Alexander on Connect, and
Right.
before I had talked about Jessica Rachel and this whole concept of, what she will say is everybody has a spirit guide assigned to them that's trying to basically guide them to lead their most purposeful and aligned life. Had you heard of this concept of like we have a spirit guide? Is that something you were familiar with?
No, I was always taught and just myself told in terms of like ancestors, right? You have your ancestors, and those are kind of your spirit guides. But this was actually new for me and being taught in position of like, no, you have someone for you specifically that is really channeling you and with you on all these lives and kind of guiding you in that direction, which was like really amazing to think about, right? It's powerful when you think of lineage and when you think of my ancestors are leading me, but to know that there's a spirit guide made for you specifically that follows you and protects you kind of made a lot of sense for me. Um, I don't know how people feel, but like in moments and positions, I'll get like a tingling sensation, or I'll just know like, okay, I need to go left, if you will. And
Yeah.
so after that session with her, it all made sense for me, right? So it's more so like, okay, this person has been leading me, which is just amazing, re- really amazing and really cool. If you put into that perspective, it's like you're not a cheat code, but if you're in tune, it really is, right? If you're just following that instinct, how can you go wrong?
I seem now, I think I pick up on so many more things, like nudges that I'm getting. But I want to talk about, so you did a session with Jessica Rachel. Um, so first of all, just big picture, what was your takeaway? Like, what did you think overall?
Yeah. So she was so sincere. Um, I'm a mother and she's a mother, so that was I was nervous for that as well, right? Getting a reading with someone that you haven't met before is and talking about certain things, it's very intimate. It can be very intimate.
Yeah.
But that maternal instinct initially really came through. So she allowed me to be comfortable. I have to say in the beginning, I was like, okay, I don't know what to expect from this. Um, but the more that we began to talk, the more my layers really were able to kind of be uncovered, right? Of like, okay, hold on, what's happening here? This person's never met me before. And is talking to me about my grandmother and her love of flowers and her love of nature. And my grandmother's been passed away for 10 and a half years now. So I have to say when I first started, I was like, okay, let's kind of see what's gonna happen, right? We're kind of positioned to be hesitant as adults. Like, there's no way it's too good to be true. Um, but, like, why do we need to be that way? But yeah, in the midst of that call was about an hour long, and she really probably 25 minutes in, 20, maybe 20 minutes in, I was like, "Holy hell."
Hmm.
How
That's
does she
amazing.
yeah, like, yeah,
Well, I want to kind of break this down. I've talked so much in this podcast about Jessica, and I feel like I'm a good friend of hers now, and I so admire her, and just think she's such a wonderful person. Before we get into the specifics, a few more of the specifics of kind of your session, um, tell me your thoughts on, because I've been advocating for, like, when I've done these sessions with her, just how I think she comes off as so authentic.
yeah.
Um, and though it just kind of flows. What was your reaction to just how she spoke during that, hour plus?
It was like talking to a friend, right? It's like it came on, talked about her kids, instantly very warming and, like, very welcoming. It really was though like it was like you or I having a conversation, although I'd never met her before, it felt like, okay, she knows the purpose of today. Um, didn't give me a whole spiel of this is what to expect. She's like, I don't know what's gonna come through. Like, very cut and dry, which I loved. Very transparent. She's like, Ultimately, whatever does come through, you're more than welcome to ask me questions. And I can elaborate if they allow me to," is what she kept saying. Right? Is like she was asking, she's the spirit guides that come through, if they want to kind of unveil this, then they will. Right? So she in that moment, it's not about her, it's about her gift. And it's about the gift that she uses and how she uses it. So it was almost just like talking to a girlfriend, which was really nice.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
wish I wish everybody, like, I just wish somehow I could get 1,000,000 people
I know.
to
I
do a
know.
session with Jessica, and then have, like, some kind of Zoom call with all these people talking about it, because I am so fascinated by it. I'm so kind of blown away by it. I'm so, sold on it.
Mhm.
Um, I just think it's so interesting. So was there anything, one thing I've learned in talking to people that have done sessions with Jessica, it's not like you're going to necessarily get this huge bombshell. I mean,
Yeah.
you may get something that's, like, I had a friend, Jane Fan. You can go back and see one of my prior episodes. There was some really kind of crazy stuff where she channeled her father, talked about his love of flowers, talked about he's with her dog Lucy that had passed, like some stuff that was just kind of like, whoa. It doesn't always happen like that. A lot of times, maybe the guidance is a little more subtle, or just whatever a person's spirit guide's telling them. What were one or two kind of takeaways you got in terms of either advice or suggestions from your spirit guide?
Yeah, so I have to tell you, I had to go back and listen to it again, right in the
Which
midst
is a
of it.
good thing to do.
Yeah, I think I was so worried of, like, what's gonna happen? What is she gonna answer for me that first that you don't really retain it as
Yeah.
much. And so I went back and I listened to it now. I've listened to it 3 times. And so it's
Wow.
interesting that each time I listened to it, it's been a bit of time, but the first time I re-listened, it was like, wow. So just to give you some examples, I talked about my grandmother, and I've talked about her a lot because she is someone that shows up a lot for me, and is like the truly, I believe she's the reason I'm the woman that I am. Like that is my person. Um and so for me initially when we were talking, she had mentioned her love of flowers I talked about, but she had actually mentioned um oh, I can't remember the name of the flower, but there's this flower that she grew in her backyard. And Jessica was like, I can't really describe it. I don't really know what this is. It almost looks like a lily, but I don't think it's a lily. And she then begins to describe this flower, and she's like, it's white and almost looks like a dandelion. And instantly, I go back to my childhood, and we had this beautiful, like abundant garden at my grandparents' house. And those flowers were like her baby, right?
Mm.
That was one of the special places in and around her backyard, around her pool. And so, in the midst of our session, I looked for old photos of me when I was younger, and I pulled up that flower, and
Oh
she
my
goes, "Oh
gosh.
my goodness, that's
Wow.
right?" And so I'm like, "What is happening?"
That's
And
super cool.
so she another thing, isn't that so
Yeah.
amazing? Another thing that she had said that I I had to go back and listen to as well is she's like, "You know, your grandmother is showing me a bunny, a photo of a bunny." And I'm like, I didn't have a bunny growing up. I don't really like bunnies, so I'm like, I don't know what that's about. And on my second time listening to it, I have 2 daughters, as you know, and we were talking about, I think it was in and around Halloween, and, what they wanted to be, and they asked me, "Mom, what was your first Halloween costume?" And I said, I don't know, I don't remember that far." And had made for me of all of, like, just portraits growing up. I opened the photo book, and me on my very first Halloween next to my grandmother, I'm dressed as a bunny.
Wow.
And so
That's
and I don't wanna cry, but I was like, "Oh my gosh." So it's little things like that. Um, she also, I think, like, many of the world right now is, we have relationship issues that everyone's kind of dealing with. And I, being one of them, but I hadn't told anyone this. No one this on my team knew, no one close to me knew this, and she had mentioned that on the call and said, you happen to the whomever your partner is, you all are going through trials and tribulations because you've been, together in past lives, and you've been
really
partners. Yeah, and you've been business partners, and you've been friends, and on this former life, he really did something stupid from a business standpoint, and so you haven't been able to forgive him. And I had to go back and listen to that again. So I don't know
hmm,
if anyone that's just wild and kooky, but it made a lot of sense for me. A lot of sense.
interesting.
Very interesting stuff. Yeah.
Was there anything that kinda came up about, you know, nudges or guidance in terms of professionally or passions or something, either something about what you're doing now or something you're not yet doing that you should be doing?
So I absolutely love my job, you know that. I love what I do. I love our clients. I love the age. I love it all. Um, for as long as I can remember, I've always manifested things. I was an athlete.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was an athlete growing up, and the school I wanted to go to, the type of people I wanted to surround myself with, the type of career I wanted, the house, the dog. I was manifesting even before I knew truly what manifesting was. And that's also something I've never really shared with someone. Like I journal every day, and I always
Mm,
set my intentions of what I want for myself, for my children, for my life. And she had said that on the call. She's like, "You're meant to be a manifest coach." And I'm like,
really?
"What?" Yeah, I said, Excuse me?" I'm I don't foresee that for myself, and that's still something that I'm not truly comfortable with because I've only ever done it for myself. But since she told me, I've realized that I do manifest very quickly, whether good nor bad, right?
Interesting.
Something that I've just done my entire life. But that's one thing she said is for me to start kind of coaching in terms of manifesting and also starting a podcast, which I'm also not comfortable with. I'm
Well,
great.
here we go.
I'm great.
This is your foray into podcasting. This is where it
Listen,
all began right here.
yeah, we're gonna look back a year and a half from now and say, "Remember when this is you were allowed me
Well,
to."
I think it's a couple things in terms of the coaching part. I think now what'll happen is this will cause you to start maybe opening up and talking about manifestation and manifesting with your
A lot.
friends. Now it's
Mhm.
going to be a conversation that maybe you have with others that you used to just keep to yourself because you just didn't want to talk about it. Maybe now you're going to be more open to talking about, it's going to kind of grow the people you talk about it with. And the podcasting, I remember when I started, God, I remember when we first were doing Starve Rock, we were going to
Yeah.
have it completely scripted. And I think this is before you were even at Bell and Ivy. And then, it was like we were going to write the whole thing out. And I was like, no, this doesn't feel right. I need to just like talk. And I think you're going to find at some point if the topic, it all comes down to the topic. If the topic feels right to you, then it'll be so easy for the
Mm.
conversation to flow. I remember Jessica telling me, yeah, your spirit guide for, I was like, what am I going to talk about on Connect? Like, what do I even talk about? She's like, just turn the microphone on and it'll just start talking. Like, it'll all
Yeah.
come out. Your spirit guide will kind of channel it for you. And I think for you, I mean, that's kind of the way it is too. I mean, it's a journey. So you could have a topic of, just talking about you and manifesting in your life experiences, and then it just goes. It's like you don't have to map out the first 10 episodes. You map out the first one or two.
Oh, right.
I'll
And I
be a
have to
guest. I'll be a guest on your first episode.
I would love that. I have to say too, the really cool thing about not only just Jessica, but like spirit guides and people who have that ability is like as children, we're told you can do anything. You can do anything, you can set your mind, you can be whatever you want. There's this childlike innocence. And as you experience things or heartache or heartbreak, you lose that, right? And you kind of doubt yourself. And you lose that sense of there is a higher power. There is something that's coaching me. I do have these gifts. Why can't I do these things? And the beautiful thing about this session with Jessica that I hope more people can experience, whether it's her or someone else, is that realization of following your intuitiveness, following your instinct, not being afraid of things. Like I'm scared shitless to sit in front of someone and start with a podcast
Hmm.
because my first instinct is who's going to want to listen to me, right? But then again, she had to remind me on the call of no, like you're destined for this. She told me in this life you are supposed to have any and everything you want. So it made me think like why am I stopping myself? Why do we as people kind of stop ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
so I just think it's really amazing what she does. Yeah.
I think, a lot of what you said that really resonates with me. And I talked about this a little bit with Dawn. I met this woman, Julia Martin, who's a manifestation coach, and I did a session with her. And what I was talking to Dawn about was, when you work with what Julia's got this great kind of program where you talk about what it is you want, and then you give her all the reasons that are like that you think maybe it's not going to work. Like, oh, it's not realistic for me. I don't have enough money. No one's going to like this. And she reframes all those. But one of those she reframed for me was, I don't have any limits. There's nothing holding me back. And I thought about that. And what was so powerful about it was I thought, yeah, I'm as I sit here right now today, am I maxed out on abundance? Like, am I like maxing out my credit card? Like, I'm done. This is the most I can have in life. I'm maxed out. I can't get any more. You're done, buddy. That's it. I'm not that just was so crazy to me. Like, no, I'm just getting started. I'm not maxed out. I'm not even close. And so you kind of look at it that way. I think what happens, kids have such powerful imaginations and they feel
Mm,
like they can do anything. And I think a lot of times kids who know at an early age what they want to do, those people are usually they become that what they want to do. If they know like, well, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a florist, or I want to be a writer, and they just know that's what happens for them. I think what happens as we get older, we get pushed down certain paths where, we've got to do certain things. We've got to go to college. We got to have an employable,
Mm,
um, profession. And we kind of get boxed in a little bit. And our true passion is kind of gets pushed aside. And, we kind of go down a path where we're not doing really what we really, not only what we're meant to do, but what we enjoy doing, what we really, really want to do. And I wonder sometimes why I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this, like why people don't kind of pursue more of something that they really want to do. And I saw a great TikTok with Gary V. Gary V is Gary Vaynerchuk. He wrote
oh,
the book like Crush
yep.
It, and he's been around for a long time now. But he had this TikTok. It really resonated with me. And he's like, "Stop asking for fucking permission. Do what you want to do. You're gonna die. It's gonna end. Do it. Start that business. Ask that person out. Like whatever it is, do it. Like oh my god." And that kind of resonated with me too. Like we're only on this earth for a blip, you know? And so
Yep.
if you've got, and I'm not saying you got to quit your job necessarily to do these things. Let's say you want to travel, like one of the things I want to do is take like a Route 66 road trip, like
Ooh,
Chicago to LA, drive the whole way, stop in every little diner and, antique store, document it, do maybe like a little blog about it. And I'm like, I got to make this happen at some point because just block out the time, just do it. But why do you think some people a lot of people, I think most people kind of get stuck and they're not really doing what really sparks them?
mhm. I have to say, I think it's fear, right?
Mm.
I think it's fear at the end of the day. I think that there's moments either where they tell themselves, I can't do this, or someone else in their life has told them that. And if
So
you
it's
think
happening to
about
you with the podcast.
But if you think about it, oftentimes, even the people who tell you can't do something, it's because someone told them that they couldn't do something, right? So it's this kind of a ripple effect. I think the beauty of manifestation and getting what you want is like there's almost this delulu type of like delusion that has to happen energetically. Um, and so I think it all embodies and gets down to fear. Like we just stop ourselves and it has to go back to that mindset of like, why the fuck can't I do it? Who says
Well,
I can't?
it's so
Yeah.
true. And I feel like when I started out with the podcast, one thing I've got to say I'm proud of myself for is I don't care anymore what people think. I don't care. I don't even check. I don't know how many people listen to this podcast right now. I don't really care. Um, I put it out there because I enjoy doing it. I like talking to people. These are topics I like discussing. I hope it resonates with some people. If it's just one person that a little nugget resonated with, then I'm all good. It's like, but I've gotten over like, oh, are people going to like it or what are people going to think? I think when I first started it, I was like, "Oh, like, most people don't know the spiritual Andy Hale. They only know the lawyer Andy Hale. Are they gonna think it's weird when I'm talking about being a star seed or weird when I'm talking about spiritual mediums?" I don't, I I don't mean this like in a mean way. I don't mean like I don't care in the sense of like I'm fine with it. I'm fine if somebody doesn't get it or it doesn't resonate with him. I'm focused on the people that it does, and I want to surround myself with the people who get me, who understand me, who, I said this before, I think with Dawn, when you're doing what you want to do and when you're feeling the energy of the universe, you are radiating. You are walking around this earth radiating.
Oh,
And when you start to radiate, now you're connecting with people that are connecting to that vibe you're putting out. And those people you're connecting with are the people
mhm.
you're meant to, interact with. And those are the people that you're going to become friends with and collaborate on. And, that's your group. And once you radiate, then you connect, then you create, and now you've manifested. And so that's been my mantra lately. Radiate, connect, create, manifest. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. There's an energy that's infectious, right? And I'm always saying this, I had this conversation with a girlfriend's this weekend. I'm like, even financially, like even the people, if you the billion the who have the most money, they've lost it all and they got it right back. Why? Because it's energy for me, right? Everything is energy. If I worry, if I'm upset, if I'm fearful, like I'm only going to attract that more. I'm
Mhm.
only going to bring more situations that are that I don't particularly want because you're so focused on the thing that you don't want that you attract it the most, right? And so even with people, it's like, who gives a shit? If someone listens to this, if we can change one person's life, imagine what that one person can do if they change someone else's life.
Yeah, and I think
And like having kids,
yeah,
yeah, that's yeah,
I think it's so easy to create opportunities, and people kind of miss this. There's opportunities everywhere,
everywhere. Oh my god.
everywhere, and I think a lot of times people are kind of going through life a little bit on autopilot,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
they're not they're not taking the time to slow down, see what's around them, see the people around them, see the ideas around them. There's inspiration everywhere, and that's why even here in my office, I surround myself with things that inspire me. And there's so many things that interest me. There's so many things I want to do. Every time you have that feeling and that vibe and you connect with someone, there's all kinds of opportunities there that you can take advantage of. So, like for you, I want to really encourage you to do this podcast. So, I think the first step is getting your little notepad out and saying, okay, what will I call it?
Mhm.
What will I talk about? It's so easy to start a podcast. Like the barriers to entry are like zero. I mean, it's you can just start and put it out there. And I think a lot of times people kind of hold back because they want to have everything mapped out, right? They want to have the whole road mapped out. When what I always say is just start. Just
Mhm.
start because it's going to be a journey. You don't know exactly where it's going to go.
Ever.
So the only way you find out where it's going to go is by starting. So I want to encourage you in 2025. I'm not going to put any timetable on it, but I'm 2025. If you start thinking about it and jotting notes down about it, you're going to get more comfortable with it and it will happen. And then I
Mhm.
think what'll happen over time is you'll kind of find yourself talking about kind of narrowing things down, talking about what really clicks with you, and you're going to find your groove and you're going to find your little peeps that kind of like get it and you're going to be surprised where it may go and where it may lead. I think that's what I really think is exciting.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that, right? It's like that nudge, like even you saying that to me, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And I have to tell myself, "Why don't you know? Yes, you can.
Mhm.
Do it, you know?" And I think even jotting it down is really a key thing in that because if you don't visually see it, it's difficult to attain it for yourself, but you have to visually kind of write it down and
Yeah, I think you got to I think that the visual part is important. The more attention you give it in your day to day life, the more you think about it, maybe jot something down about it, kind of see yourself with the microphone next to you, then it all starts to flow. It
Mhm.
starts to flow. Like it's always been there. You just really weren't noticing it and you weren't really open to it. And then you're gonna get little things that happen where I next time we'll have another podcast episode, you and me, sometime like next year. You're gonna then have weird little coincidences where they're not coincidences. Maybe a friend of yours says, "Oh, you know what? Well, my boyfriend is a podcast producer. He'd love to do it." Or like, "Oh, you know, I'd love to be a guest," or "I'd love to listen to that." Like you're gonna start realizing there's a lot more people around you right now that and that you're close to that will support this project in some way. And I'm
I
going to
claim
support you by coming on there and being a guest whenever you want to have me on there.
I claim it. And for you, I even think too as you're talking, I'm like, if you, Andy Hale, who has a million and one hats, can do your everyday life and be an attorney and be an advocate and you're doing all these amazing things and you're still able to sit down and record and do the one thing that you love, absolutely I can do that. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, like,
I,
even you,
I feel
like,
like I
thank
was saying
you.
this the other day to somebody, I've just hit my groove. Now it's finally I kind of get it these last several years. I mean, I'm 62 years old. And that number sometimes kind of scares me when there's a six in front of it. But then I think the energy I have and the way I feel,
Getting
it's
started.
irrelevant because I right now feel more passionate, more energy, more excited about all the things I want to do. And I don't mean this as a criticism, but I can't imagine being like retired
Mhm.
and just kind of having this rote kind of day to day, wake up, get the paper. Now, I mean, some people can enjoy that. Maybe that is really their passion. For me, I just want to, there's so much I want to do still. There's so many things I want to get involved with. I love podcasting, storytelling, true crime, helping people. And so I want to encourage people out there, anybody listening who's more my age or older. Like, I don't want anybody to think, well, I kind of missed that ship has sailed. The ship has never sailed. If you
Mhm.
are breathing today and
It
you
has
woke up today, the ship is at the dock and you can get on the ship. Today, you can start. You want to start a baking business, you want to start a gardening business, you want to be a designer. I don't care. You want to write something, do it. Do it, do it, do it.
And it's not just if you think about it, not just for someone just your age. It's like even for like people like myself, whether you're a man with whomever, that it doesn't matter. It's never too late. Like someone said to the other day to me, like, "Oh, you have two kids, right?" And you're in the midst of like trying to kind of downplay, and I'm like, "My life's only getting started." If
Oh my
you
God. Yeah.
people to tell you that it's too late, you're this age, it's never gonna work, like, damn them. Who are they to say that? Right? We all have the same amount of time in a day. We all have the ability to make our own choices. Like, thank God that we have that ability. I don't know, it's really fascinating to think about. Like, if you just decide and make a choice, like I know people who are 90 years old, Andy, kicking, running laps. And what they
Wow.
tell me, it's a mindset. They're
Mm.
like, maybe my age, I'm 90, but in my heart and in my spirit, I'm still 54. My grandfather lived to be 96 years old.
Wow.
And the only reason that the good Lord took him home was because he had stage cancer.
Mm.
And a week before he was diagnosed, he was running laps in
Wow.
my parents' backyard. And I used to ask him, like, aren't you tired? You've done this, you did that. He's like, no, life is beautiful.
Yeah.
So why am I gonna allow you to tell me I'm not
There's
old.
times
Old age is a number.
Yeah, there's times when I have this feeling, literal this feeling like I can do anything. Like I get this
Anything.
overwhelming sensation where it's so exciting, like, oh my God, like life is so incredible. I can do all these things. I wish I could bottle that energy and try to stay in that zone. But when I get that way, it's just an incredible feeling. I've been talking a lot about it with my kids who are like, young adults now, but um, I think it's important to talk about younger people about it too. So my son, Hayden, was a film major, and
Mhm.
then he just this past year graduated from a 2-year graduate program from UCLA in screenwriting. So now he's just kind of just starting, spreading his wings. And what I've been saying to him is like, how exciting is it? Just create. And so he's got other friends. A lot of his friends are artistic. Some are musicians. Some are actors. Some are, guys from film school. I tell all these people, just create. What if you want? You're a musician? Put the music out there. You're an actor? Just start. Do your own short little film. I mean, today's age, you can create your own content. You don't have to wait for somebody to select you.
At
You can
all.
put your content out there right now. So my whole every day in my notepad when I kind of come to my office, I kind of map out some things I want to do that day. But at the top, I always put create exclamation point, create exclamation point, create exclamation point. Like create something today. Create something today and release it. That's my big advice for this episode.
Absolutely. And I have to say something, that there's all these memes where and kind of on social media where it's like they see these influencers out or these people out and they're just kind of recording themselves doing everything, right? I commend those people. I commend them because they're not afraid of what anyone has to say, and they're doing what they want to do. Like, if only we could be in a world where everyone just didn't give a shit and just
Yeah.
lived lives
That's
and
what
w
Gary Vee is always talking about. Just like do your thing. You want to be an organic beekeeper, then be the best damn organic beekeeper you can be. It's
ex
like, and don't worry, don't ask for permission. And I've kind of gotten that way now with, especially with the Connect podcast. It's like I'm not at all concerned anymore with, oh, well, what if like my friend from college hears this and what's he or she going to think? Like, are they going to think it's weird or a little woo woo? I mean, that doesn't even cross my mind anymore. It's like, no, I'm going to put out there the things I'm feeling. I'm going to talk about the things that I'm passionate about. It's just channeling through me, into my head and out of my mouth. And I like doing it. It feels good. And that is the essence of the Connect podcast. So before we wrap up, anything else you want to say? We're going to have a part two next year to talk about your
please.
journey. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about with Jessica or something that you wanted to make note of?
No, but I will say is I would just for whomever listens to this or happens to see this, just take the opportunity to meet with someone, whether it's Jessica or someone else. You really would be surprised. There's so many people on this earth that have gifts that oftentimes aren't talked about enough. And that's my one thing and message I would say for today is don't be afraid to embark on it. Don't be afraid to get a reading. Don't be afraid of, well, is it hoopla? Like, no, you would be surprised. You'd be surprised. So I would
Here's
just
what we're
encourage.
going to do. So I'm hoping that I have given you a little nudge and a boost of inspiration to start your podcast. Um, and this episode may not drop for a little bit because our podcasting team, I think, is on
Mhm.
vacation, so it might not come out till after the new year. But when it does, the first listener who hears this and would like to do a session with Jessica Rachel, email me at andy@halemonico.com, HALEMONICO. And in the Ray line, put Magen, Magen Baker episode. And I will book a session for that person. I'll pay for it. The person will do a session and then we'll have them on the podcast. I think it'll be amazing. And Megan, I'm so looking forward to 2025 for all the things we got cooking. Not only what's on our plate now, but what's going to be coming on our plate. I feel without a doubt in my mind, it's going to be an exciting year.
Very exciting. Thank you so much for having me, Andy. And it was really a pleasure.
All right, to be continued. We're going to do this again. So we will talk soon. Wishing everybody excitement, inspiration, do your thing, to be continued.
To be continued.